Standards-based grading will be presented by Kenneth Martin. Grading students on whether they reach proficiency in regards to a standard has grown in popularity in the last 10 years. In the early 2000s, states started developing their own learning standards for elementary and high school students. Now, these standards varied from state to state. So in 2009, there was a Common Core initiative that was started. And this initiative was created in order to develop standards that were equivalent between states. And the driving force behind this movement was to make sure that students are prepared for post-secondary education and in the work world. Now, between 2009 and 2010, there was a group of people that got together. This group consisted of Council Chief State School Officers, National Governors Association, teachers, and content experts, and they developed the final Common Core standards. These final Common Core standards were adopted by 42 states. Now, the question comes up, why standards-based grading? Traditional grading has just been the way students have been graded for years and years. And there are so many different factors that can influence a student's grade. Some of these would be attendance, behavior, turning in a late assignment. All these things could come into play with traditional grading. Traditional grading also uses the letter system, letter grades, A, B, C, D, F. Now these can be very misleading. You know, a student that has a grade between a 70 and an 80 will pass the class, but they may not have mastered the skill or the standard. They're just kind of being pushed along, and it's really setting them up for failure in the long run. Now, when a grade is based on a standard, it's much more meaningful. It's transparent. It's transparent to the student and also transparent to their parents. And grading on reaching standards is also fair. Every Student Succeeds has replaced the No Child Left Behind Act. This means that there are laws now that they hold schools accountable for student success. So students are going to need multiple opportunities to show proficiency. And these multiple opportunities are kind of the basis for standards-based grading. It's all about reaching that standard, showing proficiency in that standard. You're not held at fault for attempting to reach a standard and not quite getting there. You go back, you practice until you can show that you can reach the standard. Now, when changing from traditional grading to standards-based grading, all of the work was going to fall on the teachers. It's going to be tough on them. It will take some time. The reason why is they're going to have to change the way they've done things. Some of them have done things traditionally for years. So in order to make the transition, they have to tailor all of their work around the standards. They also have to modify their tests that they have been using. And another thing they have to do is come up with some consistency amongst their fellow teachers in how achievement is measured. And these things that need to be done by teachers can be made a lot easier if they are collaborating with each other. And that's where professional learning communities come into play. Within their PLCs, they can discuss their assessments. They can discuss successful teaching strategies. And they can also look at the standards and make sure that the tests are correlated with the standards. And then they can come to an agreement exactly what it looks like for a child to be proficient in a standard. Now, in order to find out how much this affects students, there must be research done. And the research question is, does standards-based grading have an impact on student achievement? Now, when thinking about research, you have to come up with a research design in order to perform the study or the experiment. And you have the hypothesis that standards-based grading does have a positive impact on student achievement. In order to find out if this is true, you've got to have a sample population. Now, the sample population in this case is going to consist of multiple students from multiple classes from multiple schools. And you're going to have to look at certain classes that are receiving traditional grading and certain classes that are receiving standards-based grading. Now, this sample population, these classes, they're already put together. So this eliminates the possibility of randomly selecting the sample population. Because of this, as a researcher, you have to move to a quasi-experimental design, because there is no randomization in the sampling. So the exact quasi-experimental design would be the non-equivalent comparison group design. In the non-equivalent comparison group design, you have a control group and experimental group. Now, the control group would be the classes that are receiving traditional grading. The experimental group would be the classes that are receiving standards-based grading. At the beginning of the semester, all the classes will receive a pretest. Then they will go throughout that unit of study, either receiving traditional grading or standards-based grading. At the end of the unit of study, all the students in all the classes will receive a post-test. Now, the pretest is going to show a baseline for what the students know already, where they are starting this unit of study. The post-test would be some sort of end-of-course test that will be able to show where they are academically at the end of the unit of study. Data. The data that is going to be used in this experiment will be the pretest from all the students and the post-test from all the students. Now, the researchers have a tough job here. They've got to collect all these pre-tests and all these post-tests, and they have to figure out which form of grading had more of an effect on the students. And how they do this is they run what's called a t-test. Now, a t-test determines whether there was a statistically significant difference between the groups on the variable of interest. Within the experiment, there are independent variables and a dependent variable. The dependent variable would be student achievement. The independent variable would be standards-based grading. Now, we're looking for a causal relationship here. does standards-based grading have an impact on student achievement? Now, because of the non-randomization in the sample population, this is going to bring about some threats to internal validity. Now, because you're not randomly selecting this population, there could be bias based on student prior knowledge. When you're looking at different students from different classes, different schools, not every student is going to start this unit of study out at the same level. Now, to help alleviate this threat is the pretest. I do think the pretest will kind of show where they are and give a starting point so you can see where they started from, and look at the post-test where they ended, and you can tell how far they've come. Another possible threat to validity would be the teachers. Unfortunately, some teachers are less effective than other teachers. So when you're looking at different classes and different schools, there's all kinds of teaching styles that are being involved here. Not every teacher is the same. So this could definitely threaten validity to the experiment. Another threat would be select maturation. This is when students may become bored, or they may just completely lose interest and stop paying attention at some point during the unit of study. And what's going to happen here is their post-test is going to be affected by this. Selection regression is also a threat to validity. Selection regression occurs when different groups are from different populations. And that's exactly what we have here. There may be some schools that are higher achieving schools compared to other schools that may be lower achieving. And these factors will be possible threats to validity. In conclusion, even with all the threats to validity considered, if the experiment is done the right way and is done carefully, the researchers do a good job of analyzing the data from the pretest and post-test, I do think that it can be proven if standards-based grading has a positive impact on student achievement. Once again, this is Kenneth Martin. Thank you for listening. And I'm now going to show you the references used